with AI. Everyone is using AI. Everyone is publishing stuff on social media, and everyone is telling you to just go use ChatGPT and publish 5 times as much as you publish right now on social media. And that's not really good advice, because what that means is that there's just more noise. And the stuff that we publish is just boring, same. It sounds the same like everyone else. So we have to be more bold when it comes to standing out and growing a business. And that comes to whether you publish content on social media, or you're doing a paid advertising campaign, or you're building a relationship with someone. Figure out how you can do all of that with more courage. How can you stand out more? There are always things that come your way, or there are always things that don't go your way. So the only way that I can deal with them is by detaching from all these things that I can't control, so that I can focus on what I can control. Number one. And number two, another secret weapon is to always respond with kindness. Always respond with kindness. And I'll give you a very practical example.
Hello, everybody. This is Shivani Gupta, your host, and welcome to Grow Your Business podcast. I am so excited. This woman I'm about to introduce, I have now known for many years through EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, and she is a bit of a dynamo. In fact, she's a lot of a dynamo. She's a maverick entrepreneur. She's a renowned communication specialist. She's an award-winning international keynote speaker. She's a mad adventurer. When we start speaking, you'll know why. She's also the best-selling author and the founder of Basic Bananas, Oceanlovers, and Moments of Humanity. And not only that, she is a mum and has a partner and had a baby last year. So there's so many things in terms of the wealth of experiences we need to learn from Franziska. I had an opportunity to share the stage with her not long ago and was absolutely blown away. So welcome to the podcast, Franziska.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Shivani. It's such a pleasure and honor to be here with you today.
Oh, now, one of the questions I always like starting asking about Franziska is like, tell us about the challenging times. Tell us about the adversity and some of the things that you've faced in your life. But how did that shape you or transform you into the person that you are? And I know for many of us, there's lots of those moments, but what are the one or two key ones that come to your mind?
You know, I always try to go with my intuition. So the first thing that comes up is usually the intuition talking. And the first thing that came up is when I was 16, I decided to do an exchange year in Costa Rica. And so that means is you go to a local family there that you have never met before. And there are other exchange students. Most of them were a little bit older. And so I went to Costa Rica without hardly speaking any Spanish. I learned a few months before a few words. And this was also before we did emails and had phone calls. So all the only communication I had with my parents back then was fax machines and real letters in the mail, and maybe one phone call in the whole entire year, because it was so expensive to call. And so the challenge, of course, this has taught me so much at that pretty young age. And it's really shaped me. I feel like it's really shaped me, coming from a pretty conventional, rules-driven society, Switzerland, and where things are, usually working pretty well. And there are quite a lot of rules that people abide by, to going into a country where often that's not the case. And I loved it. I loved Costa Rica. It's just free-spirited. It's if there are rules, usually you break them. My family, however, my dad was quite the quintessential Latin American man, who definitely had certain ideals that I struggled with, the way that he talked to his wife and his daughter. He had one daughter and he had 3 sons. Even the way he talked to his sons, to be honest, was something that's it's a cultural difference for somebody that didn't grow up in that part of the world. It was pretty eye-opening and pretty confronting. So I learned a lot. I learned how to also respect people with different opinions and different ways of being, and try to put myself into their shoes, and how to be resilient, and how to sneak out of the house behind my so-called adopted dad's eyes sometimes because I wasn't allowed to do much. So that was probably one of the first things that really shaped me.
Yeah, amazing. And, so many thought leaders like yourself, so many people talking about how to grow your business. And you've got the background that you have, as I talked about in the intro. You're the founder of, Basic Bananas. I can see the poster behind you saying the clever bunch, which is very clever. But is there like a golden nugget that you've got that really works from your experience and thought leadership in terms of how to grow your business? Like, what would be the one or two things that have really helped you grow a business, and what would you share with the audience listening?
A really great question. And again, the first words that come up are irreverence and courage. And I could share any old gold nugget here that everyone here who is listening to this episode has already heard. So what is something that I can share that is more important now than ever, and that is maybe not the most conventional thing that you would expect me to say, and that's irreverence and courage. And one person that comes to mind, of course, when it comes to those two concepts is Sir Richard Branson, which we all have heard of, or we have, maybe some of us have even read his biographies. I have, and he's also written the foreword for one of my books. So I've read everything that I could under the sun to ask him the right questions for him to say yes to that. And one of the ways why he is successful, out of many reasons, one of the reasons is that his marketing has always been, from the very beginning, even when he had nothing, when he started from scratch, very courageous and very irreverent. And what that means is that you don't copy what everyone else is doing. And I feel like this gold nugget is even more important right now with AI. Everyone is using AI. Everyone is publishing stuff on social media, and everyone is telling you to just go use ChatGPT and publish 5 times as much as you publish right now on social media. And that's not really good advice, because what that means is that there's just more noise. And the stuff that we publish is just boring, same. It sounds the same like everyone else. We don't stand out anymore because we don't have the courage to do something slightly differently. So the one gold nugget, if I summarize all that, is that we need to find out how we can stand out authentically, and how we can do that in a way that maybe has, for us, lets us tap into our courage. So we have to be more bold when it comes to standing out and growing a business. And that comes to whether you publish content on social media, or you're doing a paid advertising campaign, or you're building a relationship with someone. Figure out how you can do all of that with more courage. How can you stand out more?
Yeah, beautiful. And as you were speaking there, I was just thinking this saying that a long time ago somebody said, when everybody zigs, I zag, or vice versa, right? When everybody's doing the one direction, don't just follow that. And as you spoke about Richard Branson, and other things that I know you've done, it's very much follow, not just, following what everybody else is doing, but also following what's sort of true to you as well.
Exactly.
Now, Franziska, you've got a team. You also work with a bunch of clients, thousands of clients over your business career, who've also got teams as well. What are some of your top, tips to deal with people? What's worked for you? Like, what do you think that the audience that's listening to it can really apply that to some of the teams that they're working in?
Great question. And I think that business and life is all about relationships. It's all about relationships. And so when I think about, and there are even studies, in fact, that show that, and now this is slightly off topic, but I think it's really important, again, in this day and age where we are online so much and hiding behind our phones a lot. Studies have shown that happiness comes from the relationships that we have, the deep relationships that we have. And that doesn't mean a million followers on social media. That's not going to contribute to happiness in the long term. It's having real life, good relationships with people. So we can apply the same concept to business. And so the next step then is, okay, so how do I build deep and meaningful relationships? That's through open communication, one. Two, trust in each other, building that trust up. And we do that with our team too. Respect. I mentioned respect before, respecting each other, respecting other people's opinion, even if you don't agree with them. Consistency. Number 4, consistency. Consistency, I feel like, is, we could do a whole episode on this, because I feel like a lot of people miss this one. And maybe it's the younger generations that don't quite understand the importance of consistency. Because what I mean by that is the consistency to show up for each other, show up for yourself every day, show up for your team, not just every now and then when you feel like it, but every day, every time you have an interaction, show up for your team and stand up for them, speak up for them, support them consistently. It's one of the most important elements here. And then lastly, of course, is the support. So supporting each other where it needs to happen. So I feel like those are the fundamentals that are important when it comes to building really good relationships. And it's the same
Mm,
with team.
mm. Yeah, and it's almost like the pillars and, what you sort of build the foundations on in terms of do that. Now, I know you're an entrepreneur, you run several businesses, you're about to go on to a big motorbike trip, which sounds incredible. And, you've got two little bubbas. So all the challenges that come your way, like both in business, both personally, how do you tackle them? Like, do you have a system or a methodology or a process, or do you meditate, or do you lock yourself in a car? Like, what do you do? Like, I'm curious in terms of when something that you've got to tackle, whatever part of life it is, how do you go about tackling the challenges that life thrown at you?
I have a secret weapon which doesn't always fire, but it's always in my back pocket, and I always remind myself of. And you and I have talked about this. You've seen me speak about this on stage. And so my secret weapon that doesn't always work is detachment.
Mm,
Detachment. So practicing
mm,
this principle of detaching from any outcome. So as you say, I got two secret weapons, but the first one is detachment. And as you say, all day long, as you run businesses and publish books, write books, speak on stage, managing family, kids, and all these different parts and adventures, there are always things that come your way, or there are always things that don't go your way or the way that you want them to go. So what is one of the best ways to deal with that is detachment. And I've just written an article for Inc. magazine about the illusion of control, which is a concept that emerged in the 1970s. Although somebody just told me that actually in the Bible, Francis de Assisi already talked about this whole concept. And I can't quote the quote, but one of my ex-boyfriend sent me this quote, said, hey, by the way, this illusion of control comes back to even it's talked about in the Bible. And what it means is that we overestimate our ability to control certain things that are not in our control. Like we're trying to control the weather, or we're trying to control the economy, or we're trying to control how somebody responds or how somebody doesn't respond. All things that are outside of our control. So the only way, and these are all challenges, so-called challenges. So the only way that I can deal with them is by detaching from all these things that I can't control so that I can focus on what I can control. Number one. And number two, another secret weapon is to always respond with kindness. Always respond with kindness. And I'll give you a very practical example, and this is a very tiny example from home. I've got two young girls, as you say, one is almost one is 3. The 3-year-old sleeps like it's her job. The 1-year-old, a little bit less. So the last year, I haven't slept as much as I would like to. So I can go to bed, I think we've cracked it now. She's good most of the time. Detachment, because tonight might be a different night. I go to bed, and then let's say she wakes up 3 times, and in the morning, and of course, my partner doesn't hear a single thing. But when I really dig deep into
I
that,
have one of them too.
but I don't know if I should share this on this podcast because I don't want to ruin it for all the guys out there. But I was doing running a workshop for a bunch of guys this week, and I told them about this, and they said, we all say that, but it's actually not true. We do hear it, we just don't want to get up. And Tom confirmed that is true. So I use these two principles. One, detachment. So I can either get up and go, oh, I'm so tired. I got a big day of work, but I didn't sleep much. And I'm just really attached to this outcome of sleep, and it's not going to help me. Or I can go, hey, okay, the night has passed. I can't do anything about it. I woke up 3 times, and it's okay. It's just is what it is. I just drink more coffee. And the second thing, and I've practiced this, and this is going to sound really weird, this respond with kindness, because I now know that guys actually hear the kids, they just don't get up. So when Tom doesn't get up, which is basically all the time, I just send him love. Because otherwise I get up and then I go back to bed and I'm furious a little bit inside, this fire burning, because I'm thinking, why doesn't he get up? But instead, that's not going to make me sleep. If I'm furious, there's this, so instead I go back to bed, I put my hand on my heart and I send love. Like, it's all good. Just send this person love. He needs to sleep. So these two are, very easy example here that probably a lot of people can connect with.
Easy examples, but super hard to practice. And, I think you have to be a fairly evolved soul to be able to go, yeah, like, even when my partner's not getting up and doing the 50%, like, how do I actually stay in that state of love and be kind around that? That's beautiful. Tell us a little bit about your future aspirations. What are some of the things you want to do personally? What are some of the things you want to do in your business, life in general? And I know you've just talked about detachment, but does that still allow you to go, they're the dreams I have, there's some of the things that I want to do? And I know you love your travel, so tell us a bit about your future aspirations.
Yeah, I love my travel. So on the travel, if I look at different categories in my life, business, travel, family, on my travel bucket, I would love to ride my motorcycle around the whole world. I've done parts of it, and I've got a few trips coming up where, as you know, I'm taking fellow entrepreneurs to come with. We're doing the world's highest road in the Himalayas in 2 weeks, and then we're doing Morocco. We're looking at South Africa and Lesotho and Mongolia. So we've got all these amazing trips coming up that is part of my future aspirations. In terms of work, I would love, and I don't know why, I just would love to have a New York Times bestseller. So my next
Mm,
book that I'm working on, and I'm really taking my time on this one,
mm, mm.
for this to happen, for this to be a new, and all my other books are great too, but for this to happen, this book has to be so beyond great. And that's so it's my aspiration is to have a New York Times bestseller just for fun, to tick it off. And lastly, with my family, I would love to keep taking them on adventures too. And I would because I'm Swiss originally, I would love to spend a bit more time in Europe also with the kids. So figure out how I can do a little bit of a half, or maybe 30% in Europe and 70% in Australia. That would be pretty cool if I could do that. We do have a
Yeah.
dog, and it's a bit hard. I love her, and it's a bit hard I couldn't bring her to Europe with me. So that's one thing that is holding me back a little bit, as silly as that may sound for some.
No, no, not at all. Now that I have a dog, I get it. I get that at all. And so when we speak about the challenges that people are having, Franziska, around mental health and mental wellness, it sounds like you do quite a few amazing things for your mental, health and your mental wellness, like you're going on some trips and you plan out some of the things that you do. But do you have any other rituals? Like, do you do some things daily or weekly or yearly? Like, what are some of the other things that you do to practice and manage your own way that you manage, your wellness?
Yeah, my number one place to recharge is always the ocean. So I spend as much time as I possibly can by the ocean or in the ocean. I go to the beach every day to take the dog for a walk and jump in the ocean or go for a surf. And then when it comes to rituals, I've thought about this a lot, because also a lot of people talk about how you must have rituals. And I'm one to always say you must do what works for you. I don't ever believe in people telling you what you must do. I feel like everyone should figure out what works best for them. So, and also generally I like to not have rules around things. So I don't have any set in stone rituals. However, I do, when I get up, I try to get up early-ish before everyone else. So I have an hour or so in quiet before everyone wakes up. And that's pretty easy because most of my family are sleepyheads. So, and then I make a chai tea. I love my chai tea in the morning. I know if we look into the health facts and some research, we're actually not meant to drink caffeine straight up, according to some of the, biohackers. I do still. It's my pleasure. You have to make your own compromises. So I'm not saying that it's a good idea, but I definitely go and drink chai tea straight away, and pretty strong one too. And then I read a few lines of something a little bit poetic. So that can either be, if I look at my bookshelf here, it can either be some poems by Rumi, or it can be something around stoicism, or it can be about, I got another book here that Osho has some his thoughts in there, philosophy, Alain de Botton. So something, not a fiction book or not a straight up non-fiction learning book, but something a bit poetic. So I read maybe 20 minutes of that while I have a chai tea, and that gets my brain to think a bit differently, also finding solutions to problems in business that are maybe not as conventional as the straight up business books would tell you. And then I write, usually if I still have time. And I also meditate whenever I can. So there's no set routine. Today I meditated maybe at midday because I had 5 minutes between my meetings. So I try to meditate at least once a day.
Yeah, I really love that, the flexibility that comes with it. You know, when I speak to certain people, they've got their rituals, but they have to do it between certain times. I just love the fact that you go, okay, well, and you just shared with me that, you know, you've got a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old businesses, you've got a heap of travel coming out. Before we started recording, hit record, I know you were just telling me that you've had an au pair, you know, moving with you guys, and there's another adult now living in the house. And so with all those things, you go, well, rather than just go, right, I have to do this at 5 a.m., like I meditate at 5 a.m. every day. You go, well, that didn't work, but I'll just do it at midday. And I'll actually do that. So I love the flexibility and the flow that you've got around some of your rituals. And so, Franziska, if we want to follow you and people want to find out about your current books before you get to the New York bestseller one, and some of the work that you do, where's the best platforms to find you? Where is the best place to follow your work? Because I know you share a lot of things around business and personal reflections. Where should people follow you?
The best place is probably my website, which is franziskaiseli.com, Franz for zebra, ISKAISELI.com. Or if anyone is interested in more business, especially marketing, really marketing related topics, we also have a company called Basic Bananas, which is probably Australia's longest standing marketing education platform. And there's a lot of free stuff on there. We have a YouTube channel, podcast. There's a lot of really good gold around marketing on basicbananas.com. And then otherwise, LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me. I try to be a bit more present there, and on Instagram for photos and little short reels too, under my name too,
Beautiful.
Franziska
And we'll put
Iseli.
some of those links into the bottom of the podcast as well. As always, love speaking to you and hanging out with you, my friend. And thank you for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Shivani. I love connecting with you, and I love that you're adding so much value with this show here.
I'm Shivani Gupta, and you've been listening to the Grow Your Business podcast. I hope you got one idea that you can think about or perhaps even implement straight away in your business. Thank you for listening. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn under Ask Shivani. Remember, I call it Ask Shivani, so please send me your questions that I can address in this podcast for you. And I would also so appreciate if you went to the Apple Podcast to rate and review this podcast.